Welcome to First Comes Love, Then Comes Marriage podcast. My name is Lindsey Jackson.
And I'm Aaron Jackson.
And we are so honored and privileged to be joined by the Dr. Donna. I am so excited to have her. She is going to guide us in everything that we need to learn about sex therapy. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yes, we're so excited. So first things first, we always like to kick it off with, if you can, tell us your love story, because we are healthy and healing in our love journey. And so if you have a love story you want to share with us, we would love to hear it.
Honestly, I love this question. And it also got me thinking in so many different ways, right? There's the love story of how I grew to love my sisters. Because despite the fact that we blood, it still took some time.
Yes.
The love for my family, my friends. But I will tell you about the love I had for Mr. Boo Thing. That's what I called him in public forum.
Yes.
Mr. Boo Thing and I met in 2005.
Okay.
I was already somebody else's girlfriend though. So
Uh-huh.
a little problematic. But it was maybe like the first or second day at Morgan State University.
Okay.
He was coming in. I'm sitting down with a friend. She called this person over. I'm looking like, I don't like to meet people when I'm eating because unlike some people, I don't eat cute. I eat like the food is delicious. I dance in my seat a little bit. I might have a little sauce on my cheek. There's nothing cute about the way I eat.
Right.
Sustenance. But we met and we almost immediately hit it off, which was, like I said, problematic because
yes,
had a whole boyfriend. But when that did dissolve, we did get together and then we broke up and then we got back together and then we broke up and then we got back together and we are now almost 2 years married.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Congratulations. Come on, time.
Thank you.
It's like, is it the right time? Is it not
I
the right time?
It was like a good 16 years to get us to the place where we got married. Oh yeah, from 2005.
Wow. And you all were in the same space and circle the whole time?
No, we both did go to Morgan State. So I guess we're college sweethearts in that way. But it took us after I graduated grad school the first time to even begin talking again.
Yeah.
And to sort of build that back up. We realized that ours was a timing issue and a maturity issue. I mean, what do you know at 18?
Absolutely.
Not much.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. Growing and learning together. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
So tell us.
Oh, no problem.
Let's dive in. Tell us about sex therapy. Okay. So what is it?
So sex therapy is a type of talk therapy where we focus on sex and sexuality. So the sex being what you do and the sexuality being the who you are. So we can talk about anything from sexual functioning and satisfaction to sexual trauma, sexual scripts, sexual self-esteem. I talk about all of that, but part of my specialty is also in colorism and texturism. So how being dark skin or light skin also impacts your romantic relationships and how that can also affect your sex life. So I talk about all of that. So yeah.
Okay.
That's like the Reader's Digest version.
Of course. Yeah. And so can you talk about the benefits of sex therapy when it comes to the timing? We spoke about timing, coming in at a certain time. So when should you come into it and how do you get into it?
Usually when people ask that question, that's when I tell them they should probably get into it. Ooh. If you're thinking about sex therapy in any way, shape, or form, get into it because there's either a problem or a deeper seated question that you are looking to have answers to at all. So go see a specialist, right? But the benefits are that you can learn more about yourself, you can learn more about your partner, and you can learn more about how you relate to one another in intimate and sexual ways. And I separate the two because intimacy ain't sex, right? And sex ain't always intimate. They can be together or they can be separate, And what I find is that some of our couples, they're lacking in intimacy. They're not lacking in sex.
Okay. 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 Now that is a bar right there, because I do know that intimacy is not sex. We've had this conversation.
Yeah, we did.
But I think that when I think of sex, I think sex is intimate because it is the biggest physical intimacy that you could have.
Yeah, but I also think that, oh my goodness.
Gotta love this voice.
Oh, okay. Dive deep, baby.
I think that sometimes when a guy is like, we need to have sex 3 times a week when we get married or something like that, it becomes routine and it takes away the intimacy out of it. And so, the way we grew up, you being the wife in the Christian household, is like, oh yeah, I need to listen to the husband. So if somebody's like, oh yeah, let's just have sex 3 times a week while we're married, it might not be as intimate because it's almost like you're fulfilling a duty.
Right.
It becomes perfunctory.
Yeah. So the frequency of sex doesn't necessarily make it more or less intimate, is what I'm thinking.
No, it doesn't. But certain things become routine, right? And sometimes we stop doing things with thoughtfulness. Sometimes we stop seeing the other person and we are more seeing what it is that we want, sometimes what it is that we need. Mm-hmm. So sex doesn't have to be an intimate act, not even in a marriage. Sometimes it serves the same function as using the restroom or taking a shower. It doesn't feel intimate. Intimate requires intention. And a lot of us move without intention.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So what I would ask you next is, do you suggest for couples to have the same, because they're not on the same journey most of the time, right? Do they come in at the same time? Like, would a husband and wife join you or someone, a sex therapist, at the same time? Or would I go separately from my husband because maybe I'm tackling something different?
It depends. So I have clients I've had couples come in and I've been like, okay, you both have something separate and pretty deep seated that you need to work on. So I send them to individual therapy in addition to couples therapy.
Okay.
Sometimes one person has a very specific challenge that is impacting the unit, and I might stay with them both in couples therapy, but it might feel one-sided. So I make sure to let them know, right? Like, hey, this is going to feel a little bit one-sided for the next several sessions because I'm going to talk to them. And the reason that I want you present is because you just need to listen.
Right.
You need to be listening to understand, because everybody and their mama will tell me how much they know their partner. Like, oh, I already heard this before. I already know this story. And I'm just like, but you're not listening.
Yeah.
You heard it. You didn't listen. You think you know it, but you don't understand it. You don't understand the impact. You don't understand how it's playing out. And you don't understand how you've fallen right into the trap of this thing that happened in their past. So I get people to learn to listen. And that helps bring back some level of intimacy.
Okay. So couples therapy and sex therapy particularly, I think that it's something goal-oriented, or maybe this is my thought process. So meaning there's an end date. Like, say I'm coming in and I'm like, I want to have better sex with my husband, whatever the goal is. It's not as long-term as regular therapy, or can you tell me? You tell me.
I feel like I'm gonna get on y'all nerves a little bit because I'm gonna say it again. It depends.
Because I don't know. It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends, right? So I've had an individual client come in for a specific thing and was done with therapy in 12 weeks. Like, seriously, like in and out, clockwork.
Right. Because
I have had couples that have stayed with me for over a year. They're coming in, weekly or bi-weekly, faithfully, and they're just in therapy. because it depends on what we're working on, right? Sexual trauma requires more time to unpack, more
Right.
time to heal, more time to reconnect. And sometimes that reconnection cannot happen with the partner. It has to happen on the individual basis first before they're trying to reconnect with the partner. So that can take a little bit longer. Clients that are coming in for true sex therapy, right? Like, we are just not having the sex we want, but everything else is, fine. They in and out for the most part, because the rest is just, okay, try doing this, try doing that, try doing this. Simple stuff. But most people are not coming in with simple stuff. Most people think they're coming in with simple stuff. But ultimately, I'd be like, you know why your sex life is whack? Y'all don't like each other.
Right.
We just did an episode about liking
each other. Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, it's wiggity wiggity whack because you don't like each other. And it's okay. It's okay to say that. It's okay to be there and to know that your relationship is going to have ebbs and flows. You're not always going to like each other.
Yes. Yes. So
there might be some days where it's your marriage certificate that will keep y'all asses together. So
right. Okay. Wow. We just talked about this. And so when I came into this conversation initially, I thought there's this movie, and now I'm forgetting which one, but it's like a guru, and he comes in and he has these tools and he's like, let me help you. And it's like, usually it's in front of like a panel of women, and they're like, ooh, and it seems like very like bachelorette party to me. And so I don't know, this is naive. This is what I'm thinking. Like, okay, sex therapy must be like, it's a penis is sitting here and you're telling us how to get a proper orgasm or, do things like that. And it's more than that. Like, you're telling me it's so much more in depth. And I
mean, it's that too.
Okay.
It's that too. But I think that what you'll find is that even within sex therapy, we run the gamut.
Yeah.
Right. There are some sex therapists that focus specifically on poly units. There are people that will help you to open a relationship to be poly, some that will help you to close it. There are those that will only do individual work. There are those that will only do couples work. There are those who only do sexual trauma work. There are those who only work with children and adolescents. There are those who only work with adults. I mean, when I say we run the gamut, we run the gamut. Yeah. My work tends to focus on esteem. Right. And when I say relationships and when other people say relationship, we are not often talking about the same thing. Right. Because when most people hear relationships, they hear romantic couplings. I'm like, that's not what I said. I said relationships. I'm a sex and relationship therapy, as in the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you have with your family, with your friends, with your lovers, and with others. I'm talking about dynamically all of your relationships, because what you do in one place, you are very likely doing in another. It tends to be universal. It's not like, oh, I only treat my partner this way. It's also, you might be treating your friends this way, but they don't say anything about it because they don't spend as much time with you. You might be doing the same thing at work, and that's why you're not getting promoted, right? I mean, aside from the whole, you might be Black, and that might be also playing a factor thing. But, like, there's a bunch of other stuff that is also coming up. So I tend to look at things from my own angle, which tends to be about esteem, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our friendships, our family relationships, and our romantic liaisons. I'm thinking about those things. So that's the lens that I'm constantly looking through. So there's some people that just do straight sex stuff. And when a client comes and all they really need is a lesson on toys and how to use the toys and how to properly ride a penis, if that's what they're into, or how to do oral sex, I send them to my girl, Ask Goody, right? Ask Goody sells toys. Her name is Goody Howard, but she sells toys. She teaches classes. This is part of what she do. I'll send them to Shani Hart, who has Heart's Desires here in the DC area. So like, I'll send them to her, like, go ahead, buy some toys and get some education on how to use those toys. I'll send them to where they need to go, right? Because number one, I'm expensive. And number two, it's not always the best use of time, right? It's not the best use of my time, because I want to help you to relate better. And so if you just need a sex toy recommendation, that's not a session. That's a consultation with somebody else. So I'll send you where you need to go.
Yeah.
My question is about it's about opening up sexually. So like being a traditional like family, I guess traditional, and being married is like, okay, sex is like missionary style. And say the wife wants to do other things, or the man wants to do other things, or the man wants oral sex and the wife doesn't want to do it. Uh, and so they go to therapy. Is it more like, let's focus on why she doesn't want to do it? Or is it like, let's focus on why he wants it so bad type of thing?
I don't question people's desires, right? We want and like the things that we want and like. I might ask why it's important for your partner to be the one to give it to you. I might ask some of those questions, but it's never going to be the focus, right? We're going to talk about why you don't want to. What's the barrier there? Because oftentimes, as quietly loud as it is kept, a lot of Black women especially have grown up with don't wear red lipstick, don't wear red nail polish, don't be fast. Whores do this, whores do that, and then suddenly someone puts a ring on it, and you're supposed to be busting it wide open.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have for some people over 30 years of keep your knees locked. Your value is in your virginity. Your value is in that you don't have sex. Your value is in that you don't put penises in your mouth. You can't have 30 plus years of that, and then suddenly there's a ring on your finger and now busted wide open. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
No one has prepared you. We have been taught to separate from our bodies, and then you get these people in our lives who have not been taught the same lessons that we have been taught, and suddenly they're like, I don't understand why you're not doing the things you're supposed to be doing. And I'm just like, that thing not thinking the way it's supposed to. It's because white supremacist patriarchy.
Yeah.
Like, it's because the church. It's because name your reason, right? But most of them come back down to some of the same stuff, which I say is white supremacist patriarchal capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
because they have a vested interest in controlling Black bodies and controlling women.
Right.
So we're grown and steeped in that, but men are taught something different.
Yeah.
Masculine people are taught something different. They're taught to explore themselves, to explore their sexuality. Many of them are not actually shamed for it, even in the church.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But
That's right.
women and feminine people are very much shamed. And then suddenly you want them to be busting it wide open, but it's like, okay, when were they supposed to have the practice that you had? You got a 30-year head start.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But we're not ready to have those conversations. So
Yeah.
that's part of what I bring into the therapy room. I'm like,
Mhm.
if you do not understand the intersection of race and gender where it comes to sexuality, you will be lost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's
Y'all be saying stuff, but y'all not communicating.
right. Right. So, okay, let's talk about some tools that you would help. Let's talk the couples who have lost the intimacy. So we hear it a lot, like we're trying to help people grow and love each other through the years, right? Because we're talking about like marriage, and marriage is forever. And like you were talking about, we have ebbs and flows. So a couple has come to sex therapy and they have lost their connection. And what kind of tools would you help them to or where do you even start and begin to bring that back?
There's this African proverb, and it says that if you fall, don't look at where you fell, look at where you stumbled. I take them back. When did you stop? When did you notice that you started to lose your connection? That's where we start, because why people lose their connections are wholly personal to their individual relationships, right? So the first tool is figuring out what was the thing that sort of added the distance within your relationship. For some people, it's a time thing. For most people, it's a time thing, right? We are running around trying to do 50, 11 things,
Everything.
overworked,
Yes.
overworked,
Yes.
running from this thing to that thing. We got way too much on our plates. And we don't have the type of support systems that allow us to effectively do all those things.
Okay.
Right. So some of it is it's simply just starting there, like what happened, because from there we are able to identify the tools, right? So for one client, it was just like they were growing resentful,
Yeah.
and that was part of the reason for disconnect. And when we got to why they were feeling resentful, it's because though both of them worked full-time jobs, she was the one working the second shift.
Okay.
Right? She come home to do all the laundry, to do the cooking, the cleaning, to make sure that the house is the way the house needs to look, which means that sex was not something that was on the table, and was resentful when it had to happen, right? But there was also a complete lack of intimacy. He wasn't seeing her. So what we did, like the tools for that one were, okay, let's talk about your finances real quick. Can you afford to have someone else clean your house? Because I'm just like, is divorcing because the house is dirty, is that an option?
Right.
Because if
Talk about it.
And like, no tea, no shade, no lemonade. For some people, it is. If you won't clean the house, I want a divorce. Okay, cool. But for other people, they're willing to employ somebody so that they can have some smoothness in this one area of their relationship.
Right.
So it's like, okay, cool. You don't want to clean, so you will pay for a cleaning person every other week. I will pay on the other weeks. Both of us will coordinate with this person of when they're going to come to clean. Cool. And then look at that. You smooth something out and it was simple.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes we need simple solutions to what we believe are complicated problems.
Right.
We complicate the problems mostly when we are demanding that someone be somebody other than who they've always been. So the tool in this case might be hire a cleaning crew.
Okay.
Hire a babysitter because you feeling that disconnect because y'all don't spend no time together, because Monday through Friday, y'all working so hard and you're trying to fit an entire life in the weekend.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes it's, okay, what can you do during the week? How can you bring pleasure into your weekday and not just your weekend? Because let's be real, most people, we living for the weekend. People date each other on the weekend. They do all their laundry on the weekend. They take out the kids on the, you're trying to do the grocery shopping. You're trying to do everything on the weekend. And I'm just like, well, what if you ordered groceries that delivered on Monday?
Right.
What if you sent out your laundry on a Tuesday? They could get it back to you in 24 to 48 hours. Now you got clean laundry, and the only thing you got to do is put it away. My girl put me onto that. She was offended that I was using a Tuesday off that I had to do laundry. She's just like, you about to do what? She's just like, I'm offended. You stressing me out. And she sent me a gift card to a company that would pick up the laundry and then drop it back off.
Yeah.
Your friend does that. Right?
Yeah. I have a friend that does that as well. And it saves time. I have one day off a week. I'm only off on Mondays. And so every time is valuable. That makes sense. The resentment builds over time because we don't even have time to talk about why we don't have time. So to me,
exactly.
I see that especially with people who are new parents and going into, they have young kids, any, 5 and under. And then we have this type of really.
And they get all your resources, right?
Yeah.
So the resources being time, money, energy.
Yes.
They're getting all of those resources. Yes. And number one, there's none left over for yourself as an individual. And there's none left over for your relationship. These things, they build over time. They corrode over time. So, I mean, where you talk about tools, I'm like, well, where did you stumble? Not where did you fall? Where did you stumble? Because you probably stumbled some space back that you have dismissed and never talked about. So let's go back there. Where did you stumble? And also, yes, what was the thing that made you fall? And what was going on between those two events? Right? So some of it is, you got to know where you've been and know where you're trying to go. Right? So that the Sankofa principle, look back to go forward. But as far as tools, most people need the tool of communication.
Okay.
People be talking, but they're not talking about the same thing. They're not saying the same thing. They're not in the same book. They're not on the same page. They're not in the same library. They're not on the same continent. The book is in Sanskrit. this book is in English.
Yeah.
Y'all are on completely different levels, right?
And they also see different things as important. So for me, I'm like, most of the time, if we're talking about something, I see the kitchen as being very important right now, and you see something outside as something very important. And so then how do we get to what's most important? Like, who's more important? I guess that might be a simple, silly question, but it's like, who's more important? Is it me or is it you? You know, is it the wife or is it the husband? Because
neither,
the saying,
and both.
well, the saying was happy wife, happy life. And now
happy spouse, happy house.
I know everybody came up with that saying, and I was like, oh, y'all trying to just go ahead and make it the couple. Okay, I can get with it. You know, it's
yeah.
fine, but
because nobody's needs should be dismissed, right? Everybody may have you're different people. You're always going to be different people. And the one thing that often comes up is that people are trying to bring partners to heal. They are not dogs. They are not your property. They are your partner. And if you act like their property, it's very easy to dismiss their needs and just focus on your own.
Yeah.
If we're people who continually subscribe to happy wife, happy life, then that means we're also missing out on the ways in which people who are not the wife, we're missing out on their needs and their desires in the relationship, right? So sometimes I'm like, well, what's more important, being right or communicating?
Yeah.
Is it okay that they communicate something that basically comes out as no? And it's funny, I literally just did a video on that yesterday. We don't like no, right? We don't even like not now. Because if we think something is important and we want something, we want it now, right? Like JG Wentworth, I want my money now.
Yeah.
So we're into that now, but I'm like, well, what's going on with your partner that they can't give it to you now? Have you considered it? Or do you believe yourself to be the son of their universe?
Mm-hmm.
Because, unpopular opinion, you're not.
So my question was more so for intimacy. Like, how do you explain to someone that sex is not intimacy when like growing up, I've known it's a difference, but like if I talk to my friends or something, and anytime we weren't connecting, they were like, oh, she just needs some dick. Like that, like that's what she needs. But and so people have been brought up that way. Our women, it's like, oh, don't let him leave the house without what is it, like he's supposed to have like his nuts are
full.
like
that's supposed to be empty.
Belly full and that
belly full and sack empty or something like that. Yeah. But these are saying,
I know, but how do you explain to somebody who thinks like sex is intimacy, like that's the only way to reconnect is sex, but like what you said in the beginning, it's not the only way to reconnect. So how do you kind of get to a couple to understand that?
That one, it can be tricky, right? Because for one partner, it may be that the way that they do reconnect is through the physicality of sex. So for them, sex does mean intimacy. For the other partner, it may not mean intimacy at all. It may mean like, oh, you're just trying to get off and I'm not in that space with you and you refuse to reconnect with me, but you think that we're going to reconnect in sex, right? So they're on different pages. So part of it is simply like, we'll have a conversation, not just like, okay, sex is sex, intimacy is intimacy. And they're like, no, sex is intimacy. I'm like, no, sex is sex. Intimacy is about your connection, about being able to be here with your partner, to connect. Sex can offer a route to connection, but it is not connection in and of itself. It's everything that you do that helps to build it. It's every way that you act. It's the emotional intimacy, the physical intimacy, physical touch, not sex, right? It's everything else that can help enhance sexual intimacy. So often I actually recommend a book to them by Shamira Howard, or sexologist Shamira on Instagram. It's called Use Your Mouth. And look, I keep the book handy. That's like, it's handy, right? This book right here, because number one, short.
Right.
It's a short book. It's
Yeah.
got 51 pages, but this 51 pages of a short book, like what? This is about as big as my hand. It packs a punch in understanding intimacy. So this book is a pocket-sized conversation to simply increase 7 types of intimacy. The last one being sexual intimacy. But a lot of people want to skip straight to the sex, but they don't want to do nothing about the other ones. How are you responding to your partner emotionally? How are you responding to your partner physically, socially, financially? All of these things play a role in how we feel connected or disconnected from our partners, but we're not paying attention to that. We just want to get to the sex.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean, and those traditional sayings, right? The full belly, empty sack.
Yeah.
These things are rooted in a tradition of men don't have self-control. And I'm just like, is that what we want to keep continuing to push?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's saying that men are only with partners who basically are mothers that they can have sex with. Is that what we want to continue to push? Partners who mother their partners? Right. It's a little off to me, a little weird. Right? Because it's like, oh, I gotta feed you. You grown, feed yourself. Oh, the sack better be empty, because what you won't do, another woman will. Well, then go.
Right.
Well, then go. I'm like, don't threaten me and call it love. Don't threaten me and call it intimacy. And don't threaten me and believe that means that you're going to get what you need, that is going to move us to connection instead of just being perfunctory.
Okay, I know I have 2 more questions for you, because you are dropping so many gems. This is so great. The first question, though, I want to ask is about sexual pleasure. Real quick, can you are there questions that would open up a relationship even more, an intimate relationship, that they can ask each other, that were sexual pleasure questions that maybe they, you know what I'm saying? Okay. So could you share, a couple of questions, because a lot of times we don't even know. And do you ask these questions on a date, or do you ask them like
while you're in the bed?
Not in the bed. Or do you ask them, after you had 10, 20 years of marriage, like what kind of questions help, the sexual questions, to help open up that type of intimate relationship?
You can, like, people have resorted to asking about body count. Don't ask about body count. Number one, nope. You're not, what question? What? Oh, don't ask that. So let's start there. What not to ask? Do not ask about somebody's body count.
Yes.
Because usually that is just a question that is rooted in some level of insecurity. You're wondering how many partners they've had because you're worried that you won't measure up. Say that with your chest, right? So number one, we're not starting there. Number two, the questions that you ask, depending on why you're know why you're asking, right? So if the question is you're trying to gauge a level of sexual compatibility, then there's a certain set of questions that you might ask first. If you're trying to figure out what you want to do with each other sexually in the coming, maybe that evening, whenever, then you're asking a different set of questions, right? So questions like, tell me about what helps to satisfy you sexually. Tell me about the last time that you were able to sexually satisfy a partner, what was involved, right? Like, what kind of conversations have you had? Tell me what kind of aftercare you like after sex, right? Like, how do you like to feel? Like, what needs to happen next for you to feel connected after sex, right? Because some people, there's the sex and then there's a separation. And it's like, well, that can often leave somebody with less reason to have desire for you for a second sexual experience, because this one feels like you that's it, you gonna leave after this, you just right. So some people need a conversation of what we like before, how we like to check in while we're having sex, and how we like to debrief after the sex. Like, what did we like? What did we dislike? What do we want to try again next time? This helps you to build a sexual repertoire that doesn't, hopefully doesn't get stagnant. Another thing that I often have my couples do is a yes, no, maybe list. Sometimes we are limited by our imaginations and what it is that we are doing sexually. And if you have not borrowed because we've been taught, for a lot of us, especially women, not to talk about sex.
Exactly.
And certainly not to talk about pleasure, and certainly not to say anything to your partner unless they think you fast. Right. So we're not having all the conversations that help us to broaden our sexual imagination, as well as to test our sexual palate. So a yes, no, maybe list lists a bunch of sexual acts that you could be into, right? You would both do one separately, checking off the things that are absolute yes, I would love to try this, try this, try this, try this. Hell no, I ain't doing none of this. And maybe with discussion, and then you come back together with a clean sheet. You mark all the things where the yeses are the same. And the ones where the maybes are the same. And now you have a discussion. We don't discuss the no's. The no's are no's. Really? And being able to respect somebody's boundaries. I mean, I recently got from a friend of mine, Stephanie Zapata, on their Instagram, is like, consent isn't sexy. And we need to stop saying that. It's the intention that's sexy. It's the care that's sexy. It's the part where you see your person as a human. Some of these stuff are basic, really. If we want to be real, right? Yeah. But moving with intention, now that's sexy.
Yeah.
But everything else is basic. Like, we're not moving forward without consent any daggone way. So what you saying?
Yeah, exactly.
But doing a yes, no, maybe list gives you an opportunity to have a discussion. Grab some wine. Put on some soft music, lower the lights, enjoy having a conversation about the things that you would be willing to try. When you might want to try them. What kind of things do we need to prepare to do this, right? Why we want to try it. If you want to discuss the whys, because you don't always have to. Like I said, the things that we want are the things that we want. I mean, I can't explain to you why a girl likes Frosted Flakes and no longer likes Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I can't explain that. They both sugary cereals, but I know I like what I like.
Yeah. That's
meanwhile great. I ain't had cereal in over 2 years, so I don't know where that where that one came from.
I love cereal. I was connecting with you. What are you talking about? Oh my goodness.
Look, I like hot meals now. I like eggs. I like bacon. I like those things.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yes.
But being able to have those conversations, it can open you up to a realm of possibility of things that you may not have even considered because you've always done things a certain way, right? And for your audience, I'll give a download link where they can grab my yes, no, maybe list.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yes.
No problem.
Okay. Well, the last question that we always ask before you share how to get in touch with you, and if you're even open, because I know you said you are books, absolutely, and blessed, is what gem can you share for couples, for intimate couples in particular, just that you have learned over your years of experience in the field that you could share as far as a healthy healing, or even just anything that you might be able to share that might help their journey?
I guess it goes back to something that I said earlier that I already know is an unpopular opinion. You are not the sun in your partner's universe. We are our own sun. We need to center ourselves. Otherwise, we fall out of orbit. You can be one of the most important things to your partner, but nothing will be more important than they are, because they have to do for themselves in order to even give to you. So,
wow.
Expecting your partner to be you and to do the things that you would do because you've centered yourself in their universe is an unfair, horrid habit that speaks to a certain level of selfishness and self-centeredness. And while you should be self-centered, it's self-centered, not them-centered, right? You're not centered for them. So make sure that you are taking care of your individual needs, because you're still an individual. You're the sun of your universe.
Yes.
Your partner is not, which means that if you don't take care of you, you have more reason to resent them.
Right.
Don't allow those reasons to exist because you won't take care of yourself.
Thank you.
That was great. That was great.
Thank you so much, Dr. Donna. So will you share how people can get in touch with you, or if they need to reach out to you or
Instagram
anywhere?
Absolutely. My Instagram is at Dr. Donna Oriowo. Website, DonnaOriowo.com. And if you sign up on my email list, you will find out all things that are going on, because there's always something going on. So I can tell you right now that regardless of when this is coming out, that there is a 5-day pleasure challenge coming. I can tell you that regardless of when this comes out, that I am going to be doing a Plan to Orgasm masterclass.
Yes.
And you know, some of it will be in person, you know, so live in the living color in the DMV. But some of it will also be online. There'll be some online opportunities as well. So if pleasure is something that you are looking to center in your life, I'm your girl. So find me. Find me on the interwebs, and you can get on my schedule and get in space with me in that way. For those who are looking for therapy, AnnodRight.com, ANNODRIGHT.com. My personal schedule is full. As a matter of fact, I think that as a practice, we have something like 8 appointments available as a practice at this moment. That's why we're hiring. So I mean, get in where you fit in.
Yes. I mean, thank you so much for fitting us in.
Yeah,
I'm so happy that we spent this hour with you. I cannot tell you how excited I am for our audience to get everything that you've talked about and more. I do hope they reach out to you. And like you said, via Zoom, because we're all over the place. So hopefully, and you know, you have so much wisdom that if it's not you, you're going to direct them to the right place to get that healing process. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. Anything else?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right.
Long goggle something to the throat.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching us. If you're watching on YouTube, because we're on YouTube now, or if you're listening to us, thank you for joining us on this episode, First Comes Love, Then Comes Marriage podcast. You can reach out to us, Instagram, First Comes Love, TCM.
TikTok, First Comes Love, TCM.
Yes.
And you can always call the voicemail at 412-LOVE-POD. That's 412-5683-763.
Email us, please. Email us, like, write to me. I love letters. Let's talk at firstcomeslove, then comes marriage.com. See you next Friday.